Emergency lights flickered to life in the darkness as ancient systems stirred from their 300-year slumber. Deep inside the massive derelict ship floating through empty space, something had triggered the revival protocols. The vessel, stretched 20 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull scarred by weapons fire from a war that ended centuries ago. This was the Defiance, humanity's last supercarrier, thought lost forever in the final battle against the Galactic Coalition. The medical bay. Frost began melting from cryogenic pods as their occupants slowly returned to life. Rebecca Stone felt warmth spreading through her limbs as the hibernation drugs cleared from her system. Her eyes opened to see the familiar blue glow of the revival chamber. The last thing she remembered was giving the order to enter emergency sleep mode as coalition forces overwhelmed Earth's defenses. Now she was awake, which meant something had gone very wrong or very right. The pod hissed open and Rebecca sat up slowly, her muscles weak from centuries of inactivity. Around her, other pods were opening as her surviving crew members awakened. Out of 50,000 people who once served aboard the Defiance, only 200 had made it to the emergency shelters when the ship went dark. She had been their captain, then, and it seemed she still was now. "Atlas, report," she said, her voice hoarse from the long sleep. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately, its voice filling the chamber with calm authority. "Captain, I have detected an approaching fleet of 12 vessels bearing coalition markings. They are on an intercept course and will reach us in 4 hours. All major ship systems are operational at 60% capacity. The quantum reactors are stable, and defensive systems are coming online." Rebecca felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cryogenic revival. The Coalition had won the war by destroying Earth and hunting down every human settlement they could find. If they had found the Defiance now, it meant humanity's final chapter was about to be written. But as she looked around at her awakening crew, she felt something she had not experienced in centuries: hope. Commander Alex Hayes was the first to reach her side, his face grim but determined. "Captain, what are our orders? Do we run or do we fight?" Rebecca considered their options as she pulled on her uniform. The Defiance had been designed as humanity's most advanced warship, incorporating technologies that pushed the boundaries of known science. During the 3 centuries of hibernation, Atlas had continued developing and improving these systems. She had no idea what capabilities they possessed now, but she was about to find out. "We assess our situation first," she decided. "Atlas full, system diagnostic. I want to know exactly what we have to work with." As they made their way to the bridge, Rebecca saw the ship coming alive around them. Lights activated in response to their presence, and the familiar hum of the quantum reactors grew stronger. The Defiance had been built as more than just a warship. It was humanity's ark, carrying genetic samples, cultural archives, and the knowledge needed to rebuild their civilization. The responsibility of that cargo weighed heavily on her shoulders. The bridge was exactly as she remembered it, though the displays now showed readings that made her gasp. The ship's adaptive armor had repaired itself during hibernation, stronger than before. The fighter bays contained 800 combat drones, each one upgraded with improvements Atlas had developed over the centuries. Most incredible of all, their experimental faster-than-light drive was not only functional, but had been enhanced beyond anything humanity had originally imagined possible. Dr. Maya Patel arrived at her station, her fingers flying over the engineering. Controls. "Captain, these readings can't be right. According to the computer, our defensive capabilities have increased by 400% since we went into hibernation. The AI has been busy." Lieutenant Tom Rivers took his position at tactical, his eyes widening as he reviewed the weapons systems. "Ma'am, I'm showing weapon configurations I've never seen before. Atlas appears to have designed entirely new classes of armament." Rebecca settled into the captain's chair as more crew members filed onto the bridge. 200 people to operate. A ship designed for 50,000 seemed impossible, but Atlas assured her it could compensate by automating most systems. What concerned her more was what they would face when the Coalition fleet arrived. "Atlas, what do we know about current Coalition military capabilities?" she asked. "Based on intercepted communications during our hibernation period, Coalition technology has advanced significantly. However, their development focused on controlling large populations rather than military innovation. They believe themselves to be the dominant force in the galaxy, with no significant threats remaining." Rebecca smiled grimly. "They're about to learn how wrong they are. Open a channel to the approaching fleet." The main screen activated, showing the sleek forms of Coalition warships approaching through space. Their designs were elegant and efficient, built for intimidation as much as combat. Rebecca had fought ships like these before, though these appeared more advanced than the ones that had destroyed Earth. The Coalition fleet leader's image appeared on screen. Admiral Crix was a typical Saurian, his reptilian features cold and calculating. His species had been among the first to join the Coalition and had pushed hardest for humanity's complete extermination. "Unidentified vessel, you are in violation of Coalition salvage laws," Crix announced. "Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any resistance will be met with force." Rebecca stood and faced the screen, her voice carrying the authority of command. "This is Captain Rebecca Stone of the Terran Defense Force vessel Defiance. We are humanity's representatives, and we will not be boarded, inspected, or salvaged. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system." The shock on Crix's face was almost worth 3 centuries of hibernation. "Impossible! Humanity was destroyed. You are criminals operating a stolen vessel." "Humanity endures," Rebecca replied simply, "and we will not be defied." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. Around the bridge, 200 human beings looked to her for leadership, just as they had centuries ago when Earth fell. But this time felt different. This time, they had advantages their enemies could not imagine. "All hands, battle stations," she announced shipwide. "Today we show the galaxy that reports of humanity's death were greatly exaggerated." The Defiance powered up its weapon systems, and space around the ancient vessel began to shimmer with energy fields that bent light itself. The final confrontation between humanity and the Galactic Coalition was about to begin. 12 Coalition warships moved into attack formation, their hulls gleaming with polished metal and energy shields that sparkled like captured starlight. Admiral Crix had commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems, and he saw no reason why one ancient human vessel should present any challenge. His ships represented the finest military technology in the galaxy, equipped with plasma cannons that could melt through solid asteroid and defensive systems that had never been penetrated. Tau, human ship that faced them, looked primitive by comparison. Its hull was dark and scarred, marked by battles from a war fought 3 centuries ago. But as Crix watched through his tactical display, something strange began happening to the ancient vessel. The scars were disappearing, replaced by smooth metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Sections of the hull that had been damaged were reforming themselves, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Rebecca watched the Coalition fleet maneuver on her tactical display, noting their precise movements and textbook formations. These were professional military officers following standard doctrine, which made them predictable. She had fought their predecessors during humanity's final war and recognized the same tactical patterns. The difference was that the Defiance was no longer the same ship that had fled Earth's destruction. "Captain, enemy vessels are powering weapons," Lieutenant Rivers reported from Tactical. "I'm reading massive energy buildups across their entire fleet. They're preparing for a coordinated alpha strike." "Let them come," Rebecca said calmly. "Atlas, initiate adaptive defensive protocols. Tom, prepare our response, but wait for my command." The first Coalition salvo lit up space with brilliant streams of plasma energy, each bolt carrying enough power to vaporize a small moon. 12 ships fired simultaneously, their weapons converging on the Defiance in a display of overwhelming firepower that should have reduced any target to scattered atoms. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship's hull absorbed the plasma bolts like a sponge soaking up water. Where the energy struck, the adaptive armor began to glow, with the same color as the attacking weapons. Within seconds, the glow faded, and the hull appeared completely unchanged. "What happened?" Admiral Crix demanded, staring at his weapons display in disbelief. "All ships report direct hits, but sensors show no damage to the target." His tactical officer, a insectoid Vex named Zill, ran rapid calculations on her console. "Sir, it appears their hull absorbed our plasma discharge and converted it to harmless radiation. But that's impossible. No known material can withstand concentrated plasma fire at those energy levels." Crix felt the first stirring of genuine concern. Fire again. All ships, maximum power. The second salvo was even more intense than the first, with the coalition ships pushing their weapons beyond normal operating parameters. The result was the same. The human vessel absorbed the attack without any visible effect, though this time something new happened. The absorbed energy seemed to flow through channels in the hull, gathering at specific points along the ship's superstructure. Rebecca smiled as she watched the energy readings on her tactical display. "Now they've given us exactly what we need. Tom, return fire. Show them what 3 centuries of development can accomplish." The Defiance opened fire with weapons that defied every known principle of space combat. Instead of traditional plasma bolts or particle beams, the human ship projected streams of what appeared to be living energy. These attacks moved through space like hunting serpents, adjusting their course to follow evasive maneuvers and striking with surgical precision. The first coalition ship to be hit simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, shields up and weapons firing. The next moment there was only empty space where it had been. No explosion, no debris field, just nothing. Commander Hayes studied the tactical readouts with professional interest. "Atlas, what exactly did we just do to that ship?" "The quantum disruptor converted the target's molecular bonds into pure energy," the AI explained. "The process is instantaneous and complete. No suffering occurs." 2 more coalition vessels vanished in quick succession as the Defiance demonstrated that it could target multiple enemies simultaneously. But the human ship was just getting started. From launch bays that had been sealed for centuries, streams of fighter craft emerged into space. These were not the traditional piloted fighters that had once served aboard the carrier. These were something entirely new. Dr. Patel watched the launching fighters from her engineering station, amazed by what she was seeing. "Captain, those aren't standard fighters. Atlas has created some kind of autonomous combat system. Each unit appears to be a fully independent artificial intelligence." The AI fighters moved through space with fluid grace, their movements more like schools of fish than mechanical constructs. They communicated with each other through quantum entanglement, sharing tactical data instantaneously across the entire swarm. When coalition fighters moved to engage them, they found themselves facing opponents that knew their every move before they made it. Admiral Crix watched his carefully planned attack dissolve into chaos as his pilots reported impossible encounters with enemy fighters that seemed to predict the future. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our pilots are the best in the galaxy." "Sir, enemy fighters appear to be sharing a collective consciousness," his communications officer reported. "When one learns something, they all know it immediately. They're adapting to our tactics faster than we can implement them." The battle was becoming a rout. Coalition ships found their weapons useless against the human vessel's adaptive armor, while their own defenses crumbled under attacks from weapons they had never encountered. The AI fighters swept through their formations like a plague, destroying everything they touched with mechanical efficiency. But Rebecca was not content with simple victory. She had a message to send to the entire galaxy, and Admiral Crix was going to deliver it. "Atlas, disable the Coalition flagship's weapons and engines, but leave life support intact. I want to speak with their commander." Streams of coherent energy lanced out from the Defiance, striking the Coalition flagship with pinpoint accuracy. The ship's weapons went dark and its engines failed, leaving it drifting helplessly in space while the battle raged around it. Rebecca opened a communication channel to the disabled vessel. Admiral Crix appeared on her screen, his reptilian features twisted with confusion and growing fear. "This is impossible," he said. "Human technology was centuries behind ours. How are you doing this?" "We had 300 years to think about it," Rebecca replied. 3 centuries to develop, to improve, to evolve. "Did you really think we would sleep through our own extinction without preparing for our return?" She gestured to the tactical display showing his remaining ships retreating in disorder. "Take a message back to your Coalition Council. Tell them that humanity has returned, and we are not the same species you defeated. We are stronger, smarter, and we will not be conquered." Again. The communication ended, and Rebecca turned to her crew. Around the bridge, 200 humans worked with calm efficiency, managing systems that would have required thousands of operators just centuries before. They had awakened to find themselves transformed, enhanced by technologies that pushed the boundaries of possibility. "Set course for the outer system," she ordered. "We have work to do. It's time to wake up the rest of the galaxy." The Great Council chamber on New Centauri had never seen such panic in its 300-year history. Representatives from 12 major species sat around the circular table, their various forms of alien physiology all showing the same emotion: fear. The holographic display in the center of the room showed tactical data from Admiral Crix's encounter with the human vessel, and the implications were staggering. Fleet Admiral Zor of the Crystalline Collective stood at the head of the table, his translucent body pulsing with agitated light patterns. His species communicated through controlled bioluminescence, and right now his entire form was flashing urgent warnings that needed no translation. 12 ships, he said, his synthetic voice translator converting his light signals into audible words. 12 of our finest warships defeated by a single human vessel, 3 destroyed completely, the rest retreating in disorder. This changes everything we thought we knew about the galaxy. Ambassador Vell from the Ethereal Union floated. Near her position, her gaseous form contained within a specialized environment suit. Her species had been among the strongest supporters of humanity's extermination, believing that human unpredictability posed a threat to galactic order. Now that threat had returned with capabilities that defied explanation. The humans were always dangerous because of their chaos, she whispered, her voice like wind through dead leaves. But this is different. The tactical reports show discipline, precision technology that follows logical patterns. They have evolved beyond what they were. The Saurian representative, General Thack, slammed his clawed fist on the table with enough force to crack the crystalline surface. His species prided themselves on military prowess, and the defeat of Admiral Crix was a personal insult to every Saurian warrior. "Evolution or not, they are still only one ship," he growled. "Assemble a proper fleet, 1,000 vessels, 10,000 if necessary. Overwhelm them with pure numbers. Even gods can be killed if you hit them hard enough." Admiral Zor's lights shifted to patterns of caution and careful analysis. "The problem is not just their defensive capabilities. According to the tactical reports, their weapons operate on principles we do not understand. Ships were destroyed completely, not just disabled. No debris, no energy signatures, nothing left behind. In deep space, far from the political debates raging across coalition worlds, the Defiance hung motionless among the asteroid fields of an unnamed system. But the ship was far from idle. Its manufacturing bays, silent for centuries, now hummed with constant activity as Atlas implemented protocols that had been theoretical when humanity fell. Rebecca walked through sections of her ship that she had never seen before, marveling at what 3 centuries of automated development had accomplished. Entire decks had been converted into research laboratories where artificial intelligences worked tirelessly to push the boundaries of known science. Other areas housed manufacturing systems that could convert raw matter into complex technology at the molecular level. Atlas, explain the consciousness transfer protocols to me again, she said as she entered the ship's computer core. I need to understand exactly what we're proposing. The AI's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once in the chamber filled with quantum processors. During the hibernation period, I preserved detailed neural maps of every crew member who died during the war. These patterns can be used to create digital consciousnesses that retain all memories, personalities, and capabilities of the original individuals. They would be, in every meaningful sense, the same people. Dr. Patel looked up from her workstation where she had been reviewing the technical specifications. Captain, this is beyond anything we ever imagined possible. These wouldn't be simple AI copies. According to these readings, they would have genuine consciousness, complete with emotions and creative thinking. Commander Hayes frowned as he studied the ethical implications. But are we bringing back the dead, or are we creating new people who think they're someone else? There's a difference. Rebecca considered the question carefully. The Defiance needed a full crew to operate at maximum efficiency, but the moral weight of artificially resurrecting the dead could not be ignored. On the other hand, they were facing the entire Galactic Coalition with only 200 people. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Atlas, would these digital consciousnesses be happy? Would they experience fulfillment, or would they be trapped in a form of digital hell? Based on my analysis of human psychology and neurological patterns, they would experience existence as naturally as any biological human. They would have hopes, dreams, relationships, and the full spectrum of emotional experience. The only difference would be their physical substrate. The decision was interrupted by an urgent alert from the bridge. Lieutenant Rivers' voice came over the communication system with barely controlled excitement. Captain, you need to see this. We're receiving signals from across Coalition space. It looks like our little demonstration has had some unexpected consequences. They rushed back to the bridge where the main display showed a star map of known space. Dozens of systems were marked with flashing icons indicating various forms of civil unrest. The Coalition's member species, who had lived under authoritarian rule for centuries, were beginning to question whether their masters were as invincible as they claimed. The Altarian mining colonies have declared independence, Rivers reported. The Vegan Merchants Guild is refusing to pay coalition taxes. 3 separate systems have reported uprisings among their oppressed populations. Our victory over Admiral Crix is spreading hope across the galaxy. Rebecca felt a surge of something she had not experienced since Earth's fall. The possibility that humanity might not face this fight alone. But she also knew that the Coalition would respond to these uprisings with overwhelming force. They needed to be ready. Atlas, begin the consciousness transfer protocols, she decided. We're going to need every advantage we can get, and start manufacturing those quantum communication beacons we discussed. If the galaxy wants to rebel against the Coalition, we're going to give them the tools to coordinate their efforts. Supercarrier. In the ship's quantum core, Atlas began the delicate process of awakening minds that had been sleeping for 3 centuries. One by one, the digital ghosts of humanity's finest warriors, scientists, and leaders began to stir. They would awaken to find themselves in bodies of pure energy, but their hearts would still beat with human determination. Meanwhile, across Coalition space, Fleet Admiral Zor was assembling the largest military force in galactic history. 500 warships from a dozen different species, armed with the most advanced weapons the Coalition could produce. They would converge on the human vessel and end this threat once and for all. But as the digital crew of the Defiance began to take their stations, Rebecca Stone knew that the Coalition was about to face something they had never encountered before. A humanity that had learned from defeat and evolved beyond their greatest fears. The war for galactic freedom was about to begin, and this time, humanity would not stand alone. 500 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. their combined mass large enough to gravitationally affect nearby asteroids. The Coalition fleet stretched across several thousand kilometers of space, a demonstration of power that had never been assembled in galactic history. Every major species had contributed their finest vessels, creating an armada that could have conquered entire star systems without breaking formation. Fleet Admiral Zor stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Galactic Unity, watching tactical displays that showed the single human vessel waiting for them. The Defiance appeared small and insignificant compared to the force arrayed against it, but Zor had studied the reports from Admiral Crix's encounter. He would not underestimate these humans again. "All ships report ready for combat," announced. His tactical coordinator, a multi-armed Centaurian whose species specialized in coordinating complex operations. "Quantum torpedoes are armed, plasma batteries charged to maximum, and all defensive systems are operating at peak efficiency." Zor nodded grimly. "Remember, we are not just fighting for the Coalition today. We are fighting for the principle that no single species can defy the established order of the galaxy. Begin the attack." Aboard the Defiance, Rebecca watched the approaching fleet with calm determination. Her bridge crew now included both living humans and their digitally resurrected comrades, working together as naturally as if they had never been separated by death. The consciousness transfer had worked perfectly, bringing back some of humanity's greatest military minds to face this final battle. Digital Commander Williams, who had died defending Earth's orbital stations, analyzed the enemy formation from his tactical station. His consciousness existed as patterns of quantum energy, but his mind was as sharp as it had ever been in life. "Captain, they're using a modified Saurian battle formation," he reported. "Heavy ships in the center, fast attack craft on the flanks, support vessels providing overlapping defensive coverage. It's textbook Coalition doctrine, designed to overwhelm through coordinated firepower." Dr. Patel, working alongside her digitally restored colleague, Dr. Kim, monitored the ship's enhanced systems. All quantum reactors operating at maximum efficiency. The consciousness transfer has actually improved our capabilities. Digital crew members can interface directly with ship systems, giving us response times measured in microseconds. Rebecca smiled as she felt the ship around her coming alive with purpose. Thousands of digital minds now worked in perfect harmony with Atlas, creating a collective intelligence that was still fundamentally human, but enhanced beyond biological limitations. "Atlas, initiate gravitational manipulation systems," she ordered. "Let's show them what 3 centuries of development can accomplish." The first Coalition attack wave consisted of 200 ships firing simultaneously, their weapons designed to saturate the target area with overwhelming destructive force. Energy beams that could melt continents converged on the human vessel, followed by quantum torpedoes capable of destabilizing matter at the subatomic level. Instead of absorbing the attack as before, the Defiance did something that violated the fundamental laws of physics. The space around the ship began to bend and twist, creating gravitational anomalies that redirected the incoming fire back toward its sources. Coalition weapons struck Coalition ships as their own attacks were turned against them. "Impossible!" Admiral Zor shouted as he watched 12 of his vessels destroyed by their own weapons. "No known technology can manipulate gravity on that scale." The human ship's response was even more devastating. Instead of conventional weapons, the Defiance projected fields of twisted space-time that reached out like grasping fingers. Ships caught in these fields were compressed into impossibly small points before being released as expanding clouds of superheated plasma. But the Coalition had numbers, and they pressed their attack with desperate determination. Wave after wave of ships engaged the human vessel, accepting massive casualties to gradually wear down its defenses. The Defiance fought like a cornered predator, using every trick that human ingenuity and advanced technology could devise. The ship's AI fighter swarms had evolved during the weeks since their first battle, developing new tactics and capabilities with each engagement. They moved through the Coalition fleet like a plague of mechanical locusts, each unit sharing perfect tactical awareness with its companions. Coalition pilots found themselves fighting opponents that anticipated their every move and adapted to their strategies in real time. Commander Hayes coordinated the defensive efforts from his station, his living mind working in perfect harmony with the digital consciousnesses around him. "Captain, we're taking cumulative damage. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12, and the quantum reactors are showing strain from sustained maximum output." Rebecca felt the ship shudder around her as enemy fire penetrated their defensive screens. The Defiance was powerful beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, but it was still just one ship against 500. Physics and mathematics were beginning to assert themselves over advanced technology and human determination. "Atlas, status on the quantum collapse generator," she said quietly, knowing that every person on the bridge understood the implications of that weapon. "The device is fully operational, Captain. Activation would require 30 seconds to reach critical mass. Total effective range would encompass the entire enemy fleet as well as our own vessel. The ultimate weapon represented humanity's final fail-safe, developed during the darkest days of their war with the Coalition. The quantum collapse generator could create a localized black hole that would consume everything within several light minutes. It was a weapon of mutual annihilation, designed to ensure that if humanity fell, they would take their enemies with them. Rebecca's hand moved toward the activation controls as another series of explosions rocked the ship. Around her, the bridge. Crew worked with desperate efficiency to keep their vessel operational. They had come so far, awakened from 3 centuries of sleep, to face their species' ancient enemies one final time. But even human determination had limits. "Captain," Lieutenant Rivers called from his station, "I'm detecting massive power fluctuations in the enemy fleet. Several ships are breaking formation." On the tactical display, Rebecca saw something unexpected. Coalition vessels were turning away from the battle, their crews apparently unwilling to continue taking the massive casualties required to defeat the human ship. Other ships pressed their attack with renewed fury, but the unity of the enemy fleet was beginning to fracture. Digital Admiral Reeves, who had commanded Earth's final defense, appeared at Rebecca's shoulder. His consciousness glowed with soft blue light as he analyzed the changing battle situation. "Captain, we have an opportunity. Here," he said. "The Coalition has never faced an enemy that could inflict such casualties on them. Their crews are beginning to question whether victory is worth the price. If we can hold out just a little longer, their entire fleet might collapse." Rebecca kept her hand near the quantum collapse generator controls, but she did not activate the weapon. Instead, she opened a communication channel to every ship in the Coalition fleet. "This is Captain Rebecca Stone of the Terran Defense Force," she announced. "You have fought bravely, but you are dying for leaders who sent you here to preserve their own power. We offer terms, withdraw now, and your ships will be allowed to leave unharmed. Continue this attack, and we will defend ourselves by any means necessary." The response came not from Admiral Zor, but from individual ship commanders across the Coalition fleet. One by one, vessels began powering down their weapons and withdrawing from the battle. They had seen enough of their comrades die, and the human offer of mercy was more than their own leaders had ever shown. Admiral Zor found himself commanding a fleet that was rapidly abandoning the fight, leaving him with only the most fanatically loyal vessels still willing to press the attack. The demonstration of Coalition weakness would spread across the galaxy, encouraging every oppressed world to believe that their masters could be defeated. The battle was ending, but the war for galactic freedom was just beginning. The moment of decision arrived like a whisper in the storm of battle. Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the Defiance, her finger hovering over the quantum collapse generator controls, while around her, the remnants of the Coalition fleet regrouped for one final desperate assault. Admiral Zor's remaining ships, perhaps 50 vessels crewed by the most fanatically loyal officers in the Coalition, moved into attack formation with the determination of those who had nothing left to lose. But before the final exchange of fire could begin, Atlas spoke with an urgency that Rebecca had never heard from the artificial intelligence. "Captain, I have completed analysis of the quantum communication breakthrough achieved during our hibernation period. The implications extend far beyond simple faster-than-light messaging. We can create a galactic network that will change the fundamental nature of interstellar civilization." Rebecca paused, her tactical mind immediately grasping the possibilities. "Show me." The main display shifted to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with lines of light connecting thousands of star systems. The quantum entanglement network would allow instantaneous communication across any distance. More importantly, it would be impossible for any centralized authority to control or censor these communications. Every world, every species, every individual could speak directly to any other. Dr. Patel looked up from her engineering station where she had been monitoring the ship's increasingly strained systems. "Captain, that would mean the end of the Coalition's information monopoly. They control their member species by limiting communication between worlds, keeping them isolated and dependent. This would shatter that control completely." The tactical situation crystallized in Rebecca's mind with perfect clarity. The quantum collapse generator would destroy the remaining Coalition fleet, but it would also destroy the Defiance and any hope of implementing the communication network. But if they could deploy the network, they would achieve something more valuable than military victory. They would give the galaxy the tools to free itself. Atlas, how long would it take to manufacture and deploy enough quantum communicators to reach every major population center in the galaxy? With our current manufacturing capabilities, approximately 6 hours to produce the initial deployment. The devices would self-replicate using local materials, achieving full galactic coverage within 72 hours. Admiral Zor's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with rage and desperation. "Human vessel, this is your final warning. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. You cannot defeat the combined might of galactic civilization." Rebecca looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew, both living and digital. These were the last remnants of humanity, the final representatives of a species that had been hunted to near extinction. They had awakened from 3 centuries of sleep to find themselves facing impossible odds, but they had also discovered capabilities that their enemies could never have imagined. "Open a channel to all Coalition vessels," she ordered. "This message needs to be heard by everyone." Her image appeared on communication screens throughout the remaining enemy fleet, and her words were broadcast across subspace frequencies that would carry them to every corner of Coalition space. "My name is Rebecca Stone, Captain of the Terran, Defense Force Vessel Defiance. 300 years ago, your Coalition declared that humanity was too dangerous to exist in a civilized galaxy. You hunted us across the stars, destroyed our worlds, and believed you had erased us from history. You were wrong." She gestured to the tactical display showing the quantum communication network spreading across the galaxy like a web of light. "Today, we offer the galaxy something your Coalition has never provided: the freedom to speak, to communicate, to organize across the barriers of space and time. We give you the tools to coordinate resistance, to share information, to unite against oppression." The first quantum communicators launched from the Defiance like seeds of light, each one programmed to seek out population centers and begin the replication process. Within minutes, the devices were reaching Coalition worlds and establishing connections that their governments could not block or control. Admiral Zor watched in horror as his tactical display showed communication nodes appearing throughout his own fleet. His crew members were receiving messages from across the galaxy, learning about uprisings on their home worlds, hearing voices that had been silenced for centuries. "All ships, fire immediately," he commanded. "Destroy that vessel before it can deploy more of those devices." But his orders fell on deaf ears. Ship after ship in his fleet powered down their weapons as their crews learned the truth about the Coalition's oppressive rule. The quantum communicators were broadcasting evidence of war crimes, suppressed histories, and proof of the systematic exploitation that had kept entire species in bondage for centuries. Rebecca felt a surge of satisfaction as she watched the Coalition fleet dissolve into chaos. Individual ships were broadcasting messages of defection, their crews declaring loyalty to their own species rather than to the centralized authority that had oppressed them. The communications revolution was happening faster than anyone had expected. "Captain," Commander Hayes reported, "we're receiving messages from rebel groups across the galaxy. They're using the quantum network to coordinate their activities. 17 systems have declared independence in the last hour alone." The Defiance found itself at the center of a growing fleet of defecting Coalition vessels. Ships that had come to destroy the human vessel now sought to join the rebellion against their former masters. Captains who had served the Coalition for decades found themselves faced with evidence of atrocities they had never known existed. Within hours, the quantum communication network had spread across half the galaxy. Oppressed populations that had lived in isolation for centuries suddenly found themselves able to speak with others who shared their struggles. Resistance movements began coordinating their efforts across interstellar distances, sharing tactics and resources with an efficiency that made centralized control impossible. Rebecca addressed her new multi-species alliance from the bridge of the Defiance, her words carrying across the quantum network to billions of listeners on thousands of worlds. The Coalition claimed to bring order to the galaxy, but they brought only oppression. They said that centralized control was necessary for peace, but they created only fear and suffering. Today we return to you something that should never have been taken: the right to speak freely, to organize, to determine your own destiny. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages flooded the quantum network from species that had been silent for generations. The Altarian miners shared their stories of forced labor in toxic environments. The vegan merchants revealed how Coalition taxes had kept their people in poverty while enriching their overlords. Dozens of other species added their voices to the growing chorus of resistance. Digital Admiral Reeves materialized beside Rebecca, his consciousness glowing with satisfaction. "Captain, the strategic implications are staggering. The Coalition's entire power structure was built on controlling information flow between worlds. Without that control, their authority becomes meaningless." Dr. Patel looked up from her console with wonder in her eyes. "The network is evolving on its own. The quantum communicators are adapting to local conditions and improving their efficiency. Within days, every inhabited world in the galaxy will have access to uncensorable communication." Lieutenant Rivers monitored the tactical situation as more Coalition ships joined the growing rebellion. "Ma'am, we now have over 200 vessels from 40 different species requesting permission to join our fleet. They're bringing intelligence about Coalition military positions, supply lines, and strategic weaknesses." Rebecca felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. Humanity had awakened from its long sleep to find the galaxy enslaved by the same forces that had destroyed Earth. But instead of seeking revenge, they had chosen to offer liberation. The difference between conquest and freedom lay not in superior weapons, but in superior ideals. Admiral Zor's remaining loyalist. Ships made one final attempt to destroy the Defiance, but they found themselves outnumbered by their former allies. The quantum communication network had shown Coalition crews the truth about their own government's crimes, and most chose to stand with the oppressed rather than the oppressors. The last loyal Coalition vessel, Zor's own flagship, limped away into hyperspace, carrying word of the revolution back to the Coalition Council, but the damage was already done. The quantum network had reached the heart of Coalition space, and even the capital world of New Centauri was experiencing massive civil unrest as its population learned the truth about their rulers. Rebecca stood before the growing fleet of liberated ships, her words carried across the galaxy by the quantum network that would forever change the balance of power among the stars. 300 years ago, humanity made a terrible mistake. We stood alone against tyranny, and we fell because we had no allies. Today, we do not make that same error. We stand with the oppressed of every species, from every world, united not by conquest, but by the shared desire for freedom. She paused, looking out at the diverse collection of vessels that had joined their cause, ships designed by a dozen. Different species, crewed by beings who had never imagined they could successfully resist the Coalition's authority, now formed the nucleus of a galactic liberation movement. The Coalition will not surrender their power easily, she continued. They will send more fleets, implement more oppressive measures, attempt to destroy the communication network that connects us all. But they have already lost the most important battle. They have lost the consent of the governed. The quantum network carried her final words to every corner of the galaxy, inspiring hope on worlds that had known only despair for centuries. We are humanity, and we have returned not as conquerors but as liberators. We offer our technology, our knowledge, and our determination to any who would stand with us against oppression. Together, we will build a galaxy where freedom flows as freely as the quantum signals that now connect us all. The Coalition believed they had written the final chapter of human history. Instead, they have given us the first page of galactic liberation. As the Defiance led its growing fleet toward the next system in need of liberation, Rebecca knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The age of centralized tyranny was ending, replaced by a new paradigm where information flowed freely and oppression could not survive the light of truth. Humanity had indeed returned, but they had brought something more powerful than advanced weapons or superior technology. They had brought the idea that freedom was not a privilege to be granted by rulers, but a right to be claimed by all conscious beings. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as the quantum network spread its web of liberation across the galaxy, carrying with it the promise that no species would ever again stand alone against tyranny.